Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of One for the Road podcast. My name is Niamh O'Donovan. I'm the General Manager with Daniel O'Connell's, and this month we're doing the Cork edition, right? Obviously, being a Corkonian away from home in the US here, we're obviously all very, very proud of everything Cork related. So I thought it was a fabulous opportunity to actually have two very, very special guest stars for this week, for this month. So just to go through and just let you know what we're talking about today, the three guest stars that we have Andy Ferreira, who's the managing partner with Cask in Cork. We also have Alex Pentek, famed international artist. And we're very excited to talk more about Alex and all his achievements and what's going on in Alex's world. And we also have Simon Nix, who's the Counsellor for Justice and Home Affairs for the Embassy of Ireland. So a very young, energetic, exciting panel that we have here today. Even though Simon is from Clare, he's a Munster supporter. So I'll allow him to be in the Cork edition. But yeah, so if... Oh, and before I say anything, a huge thank you to my IT fabulous lady who does all the stuff in the background. That's to Sam Poole, my events manager. So whenever any of you want to order, or want to book your private party, info@danielo'connells.com, and Sam will be happy to look after you. So, but anyway, without further ado, if I'd like to introduce Andy Ferreira from Cask Cork and Alex Pentek, who are on the line and in the studio ready to join us. Guys, how we doing?
Good, thanks, Niamh.
Hey, Andy. Hey, Alex.
You swear we've never done this before.
What's that?
You swear we've never done this before. This is like perfect.
I know, right? A bit of a deja vu here, all right. So before we go any further, there's one thing that I'm super proud about is that, Andy, first of all, I've known you literally my whole life. We have been friends since we were babies. Our parents were best friends, and we've grown up together. So it's very, very exciting to be on a platform as this right now today. And of course, Alex, we were in school together in Ashton. So you can imagine my excitement, as I said, that we get to have this. So it's very, very special for me that I can have two very dear people involved. Simon, as I said, Simon is the Clare man, so he's Cork today, just for today, so that's okay. First of all, if I can just start with you, Alex. Alex, the reason that we have you on the podcast today is there's more than one reason, but you were nominated, you won the award for the sculpture that's in Washington, D.C. Congratulations, we're all exceptionally proud. Just for the viewers who may or may not know of Alex, he's the famed artist who designed and did the sculpture in Middleton, Kindred Spirits. And Alex, first of all, I'd love for you to tell us on that alone, how that came about with Kindred Spirits, and then the lead up to how you won this competition in DC.
Oh, thanks, Niamh. Happy to talk about sculpture all day. So yeah, Kindred Spirits was it was an open competition, and under the Percent for Art scheme. So artists were asked to respond to the history of the 1847 donation to Ireland from the Choctaw Nation, Choctaw Native American Indians, and that history, researching that history, it was 47, Black 47, one of the worst years of the famine. And basically, from what would have been word of mouth from the many Irish who were traveling to the States at that stage, and escaping the horror that was happening and unfolding here, word spread, of what was happening to the Irish people. And the Choctaw Nation, who had really relatively recently just been on their own sort of exodus, what they called quite poetically the Trail of Tears, which basically refers to them being forced from their ancestral lands from around the Mississippi Basin up to what is now modern day Oklahoma. And thousands died of exposure. It was particularly harsh weather over, I think, about 3 years, 1831 to to 33 or 4. Dates are a bit sketchy, forgive me. So they died from exposure. There was a cholera outbreak during the transit, and it was a sort of horror story. And thinking of that history, and also, 1 million dead of starvation in Ireland, which is just unfathomable. There was one description. I think it was a chap by the name of Townsend who was documenting and recording what was happening in Ireland, and he described at one point as the graves were walking.
Wow,
which is just horrific,
The visualization of that, when you actually visualize that, it is haunting.
Right. And the wonderful sculpture by Rowan Gillespie, an artist, an Irish artist. His work is in Dublin on the Docklands, and also in Canada. Depicting a sort of quite a literal representation of these desperate figures, in bronze. Beautiful work. So I decided to take a different approach with just the enormity of the history and how ultimately some things are unimaginable. So I created a fusion of ideas with this bowl, this empty bowl, symbolic of the million who perished here, made from round-tipped eagle feathers, which are used in Choctaw ceremonial dress, to kind of give this uplifting idea of solidarity that they showed.
It's absolutely stunning, and I had said this to you actually, Alex, already a couple of years ago. I was living in Hawaii, and a very, very dear friend of mine who is Native American, your sculpture came up, right, on all the Irish Facebook groups that are out there, and I'm on nearly every single one of them. So, and I'm seeing this sculpture, and I'm so proud because it's an Irish artist, and I'm telling my friend Susan Alden, I was like, Susan, this is an Irishman, and look how amazing and inspirational this is. To then fast forward to last August, that again, I'm on one of these Irish groups on Facebook to see famed artist known for kindred spirits, Alex Pentek, and I went, hang on a second. And I put the two and two together, and honestly, I was so excited.
Not him.
And so proud. So, but you just put us on the global map once again for everything that's positive, that's Ireland, Alex. And honestly, I was a pain in the backside telling everyone, I know him, I was in school with him. So it's a beautiful positive message that literally the world celebrates. And to bring Andy in on this, Andy, you had a lovely comment the other day to me, because you are from outside Middleton, and you had mentioned how the people of Middleton just absolutely adore it. You were saying that to me, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's, it's very much feels like we kind of own it almost, which it feels very, it's,
I would
it
agree
obviously does get, it does get, it gets quite a lot of publicity, but I just think also the location was very clever where they put it, because it's on the main, it's on the main road from Cork to Waterford. So if you're going to Rosslare Harbour, so it does get an awful lot of traffic. Also, if you're going the kind of back slip road into Middleton, it's a road that people use an awful lot. What I love about it personally is that if you're coming in during the day or at nighttime, it doesn't make a difference, because it's so beautifully lit up at nighttime that you can it almost looks more kind of slightly surreal at nighttime, just as you approach the roundabout. There's suddenly these large group of feathers lit up. Look, it is wonderful. And it's lovely that it's getting used, that it's not just kind of there and it can't be touched. You can get up quite close to it. There's a lovely little walking area around it. But yeah, I mean, we're very happy and we're very proud of it.
Cheers. My chest is expanding here, just in case you didn't know. It's popping up. And actually, you said something really interesting there about the space being used. It's a wonderful spot anyway. I chose that particular location for the work because it was sort of a level area in that sort of grassy sort of space, but people are using it for a destination and a place to walk anyway. And looking the sculpture there, I realized that actually what we need in our public spaces are iconic landmarks to try to negotiate, even if it's just to navigate towards or away from, whether it's a tree or a rock or it happens to be a sculpture, that we use these visual kind of markers to find our way around, and that's important as well. And that's a kind of another level. It's a very primal kind of level of interacting with the work. And the beauty of sculpture is that we have to negotiate sculpture like we negotiate a building and an architecture, because it exists in physical space. we either walk around it or we walk into it, right? So
Yeah.
there's that to things as well.
And tell me, Alex, you're in a very beautiful surrounding right now. Where exactly are you coming to us from?
Sure, I'm talking to you from the National Sculpture Factory in Cork, Ireland, which is basically it's an artist's facility for working on a large scale. And so you might see behind me the gantry, the yellow beam, I-beam across the whole width of the floor. That can, lift up to 5 tons. And we've heavy plant welding equipment, cutting and rolling, metal forming equipment as well. So if I get commissioned to make a large scale work over the past, I've come here to make it, and it sort of has opened up the possibilities of working on a truly large scale. Right. The last piece I shipped from here were 4 11-meter tall ferns to Australia from Cork, which is one of the deepest natural water harbors in the world. Just happens. And so there were 2 shipping containers from Cork. They went across the Atlantic, straight through the Panama Canal, across the Pacific Ocean, past the Fiji Islands, and they hit Australia. So I was tracking that, with the tracking app. So with a port, any port city, is kind of open to the world. There's that kind of that level of communication, and I think Cork has that international flavor to it.
Oh, for sure. And it definitely just does show how like it's the world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, with technology that, the 3 of us can do this right now. But very quickly, even just to go back to the Trail of Tears, can you imagine like how the word got to them from, you know what I mean? As you said, how long, months, years, whatever. There was no email, there was no internet, you know what I mean? That just is so,
a lot quicker.
It's fascinating.
It was a lot quicker than you'd think.
Really?
I think there was a meeting at Scullyville, and during this meeting, it was agreed that they were going to give all the funds that they had at that point, which amounted to, I think, about $170, which was a lot of money back then. And they gave it all, and it found its way to Ireland and was, was used to feed people.
That is
so it's wonderful. It's actually such a positive story, but you've also managed to tell a beautiful positive story in the piece as well. Like there's some harrowing pieces in Dublin of the coffin ships leaving, and of it's a brass sculpture. I'm not sure, you probably know what I'm talking about, but it's funny how sculpture can grab you in different ways, and sometimes it's just, it grabs you. But there's a lovely positivity to this, which is kind of it's kind of nice as well, it's a sad time, obviously, but it was
yeah. And there was a chap called Ernst Gombrich. He was an art critic back in the previous century, and he said that when we look at a piece of art, we have what's called the beholder share, which is where the viewer or the beholder, we bring our own worldview to the table. So what you see is and how you interpret something will be different to someone else. And even as someone who makes work, I wouldn't feel qualified to tell someone that they're wrong. I imagined it. We all have every interpretation is valid, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say, in a long-winded kind of a way. And so, Chief Batten, when he came to the launch, Chief Gary Batten of the Choctaw Nation was at the launch. He attended with several of his tribal council members, and it was amazing to meet him and all of the group. But in his speech, he said, "Okay, it remembers our shared history, but it also speaks about, beyond that history to be reinterpreted, about standing together in the face of diversity," which I was really, really thrilled by, because that was kind of where. So things being open.
Absolutely. That is beautiful, and it's funny though, because even on my perspective, I'm in the States now over 20 years, and when I first came here, I'll be honest, I was kind of rolling my eyes when people would tell me their Irish ancestry stories, and because everyone's Irish. At the start, I was young and naive, and I didn't understand the gravity of the history that is the Irish, especially, not just in America, but in all over the world. But now, when people come into O'Connell's, and everyone has such a unique story, And, you know, as I said, over the course of 20 years, the pride that you have just for our little nation, you know, and the impact that we've had on the world, you know, in a very positive light, it's just touching. I mean, I won't lie, there are times when me and some of the Irish staff, like, you would get emotional, you would get touched with some of the stories, which is why as well, it's just all the more exciting that, Alex, your sculpture is in Washington, DC. I mean, I'm very excited about that. Tell us more about that.
So thanks, Niamh. Yeah, Unity was the title I gave to that piece. And this is a completely different brief. It was, again, an open international competition, which I found and applied for and was lucky enough to be shortlisted. And so what they asked artists to respond to was the legacy of Charles Hamilton Houston, and who was a famous black activist after the Second World War, who is famous for abolishing the Jim Crow laws of racist segregation in the States, and who mentored the first black Supreme Court judge, Thurgood Marshall. And he was an amazing character. His legacy is just off the charts big, and important today more than ever, as we're all too aware of the events of last year and Black Lives Matter campaign. It's an ongoing story. So to think of Houston's life and his contribution, I looked into his background, looked into his his early days and his experience in the First World War. He was second lieutenant field gunner in the First World War.
Wow.
And like this was a war where I think industrialized weaponry was really mass produced and put into play. I think the Vickers machine gun could basically, it was designed to turn a line of infantrymen into a red mist. And so, the horror of all of this is again unimaginable to me anyway. And so he was there in France and Germany, but he also experienced racism from within the ranks of the American army. And there was a quote, and if I can remember it, I'll be doing well, but it goes something along the lines of, "The hate and scorn showered on us Negro officers by our fellow Americans made me realize that there was no point in my dying for a world ruled by them. I made up my mind that if I survived the war, I would go to study law and fight for those who couldn't fight back." Something like that. Anyway, that was the quote. Big words, and amazingly powerful, what he's saying, because there he is in the midst of it, in probably a very, very dark, miserable time from many aspects. And yet he's still kind of hopeful, of integration, of unity, of education, of bringing together people. And that was his desire, even though he was in the middle of it and going through it. And then, of course, he did come back and study law and did make the changes that he talked about, So amazing person. And so rather than kind of dwell on the negative, literal aspect of that story and what racism represents, particularly to a younger audience, younger, people and students, so I wanted to kind of try to give this uplifting feel. And I discovered in the field of floriography, which is a kind of Victorian idea of various meanings. Well, it was adopted by the Victorians, but it's a much older idea, that various plants have symbolic kind of significance and meaning. And according to floriography, the allium flower signifies unity and of staying true to one's principles during times of adversity. So I thought, well, that doesn't fit any better. I mean, that's perfect. So I titled the piece Unity, and I created this allium flower in. Also celebrated mathematics, which is an area that I really love. I was going to say, like, geometry just screams at me when I see it. I have a pain in my brain. I'm like, you're a very smart book, Alex, clearly. Geometry is, I mean, I didn't do all the figuring out of that geometry. I mean, that was the geometry of the sphere is basically based on a 20-sided dodecahedron. No, is it an isosahedron? It's an isosahedron. And so that fits inside the sphere. And basically that was a way of dividing the sphere into 20 sort of domed triangular panels, if you can picture that. And then from that, then I reduced it down to be able to create the petals of the flowers from a developed flat sheet. So there's a bit of working out involved, but the overall geometry was already solved. And then what I did was I kind of curved the flower petal edges to create circles. So when you look up at the detail of the work, now I can't share screen or anything here because I'm just on my little phone, but images of the work, you can see that the petals are formed from a series of interlocking circles, if you can picture that, overlaid circles. And that refers to a kind of sacred geometry, the circle being the circle of life and having other meanings. And so I wanted to kind of give the idea to a younger audience, again, that maths is actually exciting, you know, that it's a cool thing. And that, you know, you look at a flower and it's there. You've got maths straight away, you know, the Fibonacci series, the mathematics of growth, all of those things sort of come into play. And there's this underlying order to things. And it's sort of, yeah, I find
it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. And we're very excited. I know, you know, we're hoping that you're going to be over here sometime in the new year, where you get to see it in person, because you had to do all of this remotely as well, of course, Alex, because of COVID and everything. So you must be, you know, obviously looking forward to actually being here, boots on the ground, and seeing it for yourself and feeling that energy from it.
Oh, completely. I can't wait to get over there. You know, it was during lockdown.
You built it in Ireland, Alex? You built it in Ireland?
No, I designed it here from my home office, and a little bit here in the sculpture factory, working on some test panels. But I worked with a team, Red Pepper Forge, based in Maryland, and they were amazing. Okay. And so, yeah, they created the work. But the only way that works, due to the complexity of the piece, and you know, you talk to a fabricator and they straight away want to know about how much time is that going to take them to do, because time is money, right? So I basically worked out every single step of the fabrication process, you know, having experience with that sort of thing, making a lot of my own work myself. I knew exactly how to make the work. So I gave them a step-by-step sort of fabrication manual, and we did it that way.
It's amazing.
It is, wow. Yeah, it is, absolutely, it is. So, and actually, and we're going to come back to you, Alex. I do want to bring in Andy at this point, because there's a couple of things that, you know, just sings to me, is that obviously, Alex, you're very much inspired, you know, by the land and nature, and that's something that actually, I on your website, if you go on caskcork.com and you can go through the cocktail menus and online there, what I love when I read it put a big smile on my face, was farm to glass concept in your cocktails. And in one of your recipes, I was sharing it with one of my bartenders in O'Connell's, and I'm standing there and I'm going through the recipe list, and Brody, my youngest, who works in O'Connell's on the weekend, is with me. And so the bartender says, bog oak. What's bog oak? Because it was one of the ingredients in the cocktails. And it was hilarious because Brody turns around and goes, bog oak is what you're not allowed to touch in my mum's house. You know what I mean? And it's just funny that to us, we know exactly what it is. So anyway, Andy, you're a very, very accomplished, you're a mixologist of the year. What date was that again?
Well, I mean, I won a big competition for Ireland in 2017, but the first time I represented Ireland was in 2010 at a different cocktail competition. That was part of a team. There was 3 of us went to New Zealand to compete.
That's right.
That was a great competition. It was quite an extreme. Being New Zealand, it was a lot of kind of extreme sports integrated into it. So like the first thing they did was, when you arrived, they threw us all off a bungee jump, and then we had to quickly go and make a cocktail. And wow. We had to, I remember the non-alcoholic round was on a speedboat going down a whitewater rafting thingy, where you have to try and get everything into the glass as you're being whizzed around through the river, you know. So, but yeah, I've worked in cocktails for a long time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you were also, am I right in saying manager of the year?
Yes, I was.
Manager of the year. Yeah. So lots of things to be very proud of. You're definitely, like I said, I would ask everyone just to go on the website. What screams out to me is I compare you, and I shouldn't compare, but you remind me a lot. And we had this conversation on the Dead Rabbit in New York. It has that exciting flair to it that you have. And like I said, what I just love about it is that it's different, it's new, it's innovative, and it's really a different art medium, really, when you think of it. Whereas, you know, sculptures, you get to see and enjoy it. With your cocktails, you also get to enjoy it, but you get to drink it. But it's just a beautiful, just watching you guys and your social media is absolutely fantastic. So tell me, what is the building of Cask? Because that's been there a long time.
Yeah, it has. I mean, so I suppose this was a side building on, we had a little hotel and a sort of fine dining restaurant for a long time. It was quite well known for having a waterfall at the back. So it's it was just a beautiful drop down wall where they, to be honest with you, between you and me, it's actually man-made, but none of us knew that, you know, like my mum was bringing me here all my life and you always saw this lovely waterfall right in the middle of the city. But yeah, so it's an old Victorian, like we're right in the heart of the Victorian quarter. Obviously the Metropole Hotel is across the road. A lot of stunning architecture all around. It would have been a place where people would store their stuff before they emigrated as well, kind of back in the 1840s. So yeah, it does have an awful lot of history. And then obviously putting a new building in here, or a new business, it was very, very important that we kind of kept true to the building and kind of respected it. And we were lucky to come, you know, just to work with amazing designers and amazing builders who did that. And you know yourself with what designers do, they just do their thing, you know, and you're just left watching this thing progress and grow. And it was just, yeah, I was just given a lovely bar to kind of work with then, you know.
I can't wait to see. I haven't, just with everything, obviously COVID, you know, for everyone, for all of us collectively, you know, has forced us to, you know, reassess everything. But when I go home next, I absolutely can't wait to go in. The other thing, Andy, with COVID within the hospitality in Ireland, I know, you know what I mean, we've all been through it, but how was it for you all?
It was tough. Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. You know what I mean? I suppose we're kind of lucky that we had a little hotel. We have a little hotel as well. So, and if your bar, it was attached to a hotel, that meant that there was potentially frontline workers who were staying in the hotel, which meant that those frontline workers could come and stay and dine in the bar. Now the numbers were, you know, they were small.
Of course.
Takeaway became a huge thing for a lot of bars, just to have some sort of money coming in, just to kind of keep the lights on, you know. And that's not to say that the government weren't really good in Ireland with, you know, supporting businesses in hospitality. That's the only one I can talk about. They were very good. But it was still, you know, there's still buildings that, you know, are lying empty. You need to just get any few bob kind of coming in. So yeah, I think like hospitality was one of the industries where people really, a lot of cocktail bars started doing takeaway cocktails.
Right.
Yeah, some of them did it better than others. You know, it turned it into businesses which were almost made them more money than the original bars did. You know what I mean? But they were few and far between.
It's funny that you say that, because again, like that, I mean, none of us predicted COVID was going to happen. But what I am grateful for it, if there is a positive spin to take from it, is that, like I said, it did force us to re-look and reevaluate everything. But the biggest thing for, like, I would say for Alexandria and Old Town, especially on the 100 block in King Street where we're located, you know, you have very successful businesses and everyone goes to work and everyone's doing their own thing. Yeah. You tend to forget to kind of look up and look around you and really get to know your neighbors. COVID hits and all of a sudden we're all looking at one another. And what happened for us was all of a sudden there's a community.
Yeah.
Everyone.
And was that not there before?
There was, but it was very
commercial
driven. It was very commercial driven because, you know, everyone's just in the rat race. Everyone is just doing the best they can do. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, everyone's proud of the work that they do and everyone would have a lot of respect for one another naturally, but it was very commercial driven. Now it's like as if we've got our sense, you know, the village mentality back, the community back, because, you know, we'll pass each other on the street and the first question is, how are you guys doing? Do you need anything from me? What do you need from me? What can I do for you? There's been more partnering with businesses. Like we would do a lot of our promotions with Fish Market and Landini Brothers, which, you know, not saying we wouldn't have done before, but it just would never have been thought of. So as I said, to see that community come back in and, you know, it's inspiring and it does kind of bring us back to our roots of, you know, we do all need one another. We do all need support. And it's a good reminder. And again, like that, what you know, I find it an opportunity for people who are out of the box thinkers. It gives them a platform. It gives people who are maybe prior afraid to try some marketing ideas because, no, that's not what we do. COVID comes and it's a case of, right, everyone is looking for these innovative thinkers. So I just think there was great opportunity in the midst of there being a lot of, you know, obviously, you know, there was a lot of, it was a scary time for everybody for sure. But, you know, and I think that was generally the world over. I'm sure it was the same in Cork.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we are like, we're pretty, you know, creative bunch. Like we can, you know, try and you know, think outside the box as much as we can. I mean, I think it'd be slightly disingenuous for me to not say that it was bloody hard for bars here in Ireland. Like bars, and I don't want to do the whole, oh, we got shafted thing, because look, everyone got shafted.
Right.
But there was a lot of bars that traded for 15 days over the course of over a year. You know, they were told they would open. There was a lot of blaming. Hospitality got blamed an awful lot for our COVID situation in Ireland, which wasn't really fair. Do you know what I mean? It just wasn't, you know. Some of the rules that they brought out, I mean, the $9, you know, when they did open, it was like, okay, we're going to open again, but only if you serve food. So you've got, all of a sudden we had a plethora of these little country bars all over the country who have to have a caravan or basically have a chipper outside their van serving €9 meal, because obviously COVID's grand once you're having a €9 meal of chips and a burger. So there was a lot of things that the Irish government they were a bit pathetic, you know. And look, mistakes are always going to be made. Mistakes are made by every government all over the world. And I say I'm not one for government bashing at all.
Right.
But it was tough. It was tough, man. And, you know, and it wouldn't be genuine me to say that it wasn't, you know what I mean? So,
well, and it would have been, and I can genuinely say, you know, I'm involved in, you know, various different board of directors here within the business community, and we all had these meetings and what are we going to do? The thing is, no one had the right answer. We'd never been in a situation like this before. So everyone is trying their best. And that's the one thing that I kept, you know, I'm sure I was driving people mad, constantly trying to be optimistic, but it was a reminder of, hey guys, no one has the blueprints here. There is, like, we're all just trying to figure it out together, and by working together and trying to keep positive attitude. But it is hard because you do have people, you know, especially in the hospitality. I had it with my staff. I had a few staff members that, you know, their life is serving and, you know, knowing the regulars and the locals that come in. All of a sudden, that's gone. That's been taken away. So I was like concerned for mental health for a lot of my staff, because now they're locked in their home with no one to, you know, talk to or see, or, you know, so I'm just glad that we're over that end of it now. And, you know, I think there is a fire in the belly feel at the moment that we're coming back stronger and better, and the community feel and supporting one another, you know, is where it should always have been, which is actually something, Alex, I want to bring you in. I'd asked you there about 2 weeks ago when we spoke on the phone, how, you know, how the artists, I mean, you have such a positive and beautiful outlook on how artists support one another. You made the comment to me, which stuck with me, on, you know, it's not competitive. You're in an industry that supports one another and you celebrate each other, you know, and that's a beautiful thing.
Must be a little bit competitive, Alex. I was thinking earlier, I would hate to be a guy that makes massive sculptures all around the world, and I see your name coming up in the competition to build something amazing, and why no, not fucking Pentek again. Like,
I know, there is, with the public realm open tender, you know, that's a competitive process,
right?
And you know, and you know, I don't win all of them, right? So you get those letters and you just take it on the chin, and it's part and parcel of the whole process. You know, I believe in healthy competition, I suppose. You know, that you know, I do, all I can do is my best. I think all any artist can do is put their best foot forward. But that's quite a narrow niche of the art world, you know, and that there are, you know, a lot of group exhibitions and the gallery sort of, you know, circuit. That's a slightly different beast. And, you know, I mean, there will be competition within that as well, I suppose. But I believe in healthy competition, you know, but I also think that, you know, I think advocacy, you know, is so important, you know, and that when I have a chance to talk about another great artist's work, or someone who is young and upcoming and needs a boost, you know, just why not do it, you know, and, you know, we have to do that for each other, and I think you're kind of talking about that in business terms with with what you're involved with, and a thing I've seen actually in since or during lockdown in Cork, where you have like bars and restaurants kind of having that symbiotic relationship. If a bar isn't doing food or specializing in food, that they will allow people to bring their food in,
Yeah.
And
it's actually a brilliant business it's a brilliant business model as well. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
right.
We don't have a kitchen. I'm not going to spend, 20, 30, 40 grand on a kitchen when I've got a restaurant next door who can supply the food, and we're all, we're both happy,
Exactly. And they're already specialized in doing that. And that's kind of nice to see, isn't it? That's hopefully that'll stay with us, as a legacy from what we've kind of coming out of.
Absolutely.
And just on that subject of advocacy, a friend of mine, he's a filmmaker, screenwriter. Ronan Burke he's debuting his film in the Cork International Film Festival, which is on in Cork this week. So there's a lot of things happening in the city, and so Ronan's piece, as easy as riding a bike, I think it's called. And I hope I got that title right. It's debuting tonight in the Opera House. And so we'll be into Cask later, I think, for a drink afterwards.
Happy days.
If you're around, I'll hopefully say hello to you, Andy.
Yeah. Well, I'm totally jealous, as I keep saying. I mean, the next time I'm home, the three of us are definitely having drinks together. And speaking of drinks, Andy, and what are you drinking there, by the way? Because I know that wasn't water.
I drank water as well. This is it's one of our kind of signature whiskey cocktails. It's called a Beamish Boulevardier. So I suppose for those of you who don't know, that in Cork we make we make more than two, but there's two of the better known alternative stouts, shall we say, to the big Guinness, would be Beamish and Murphy's. Both very good sellers in Cork. Most of my mates, and I suppose people of most of the lads of our generation would have gone towards the Beamish side. And this is a cocktail that we made from Beamish. So if I just let you see the bottle there, I don't know if I can zoom in on it.
And that's the famed Bernie Murphy in the front, Andy.
Correct? It is, yeah, exactly. We've used Bernie a few times before. He was quite an eccentric Cork councillor who just loved to protest. He's the kind of guy who would just protest over anything. I heard one story about him. He was protesting, and then they changed their opinion, and then he protested the other way just to keep protesting. But there's a few incredible stories about him. He's quite a Cork icon. So this is a Beamish Boulevardier. It's essentially. Go on. What were you going to say?
He was a Beamish man, was he?
I actually think he drank Murphy's, to be honest with you. Yeah, he was
Murphy's.
Yeah. So what we've done is it's essentially a Boulevardier, which is sort of it's a whiskey Campari and sweet vermouth drink. And we've changed the sweet vermouth and we've used Beamish, which we've slightly sweetened with a local honey. So whiskey forwards using West Cork Distillers whiskey, their Bog Oak series from, and it's just very enjoyable, So this was one of the bottles cocktails we did. We did a range of them during lockdown, and then it's a case of we did them first, and we did them really badly. Or not badly. The drinks were pretty good, but the packaging was terrible and blah blah blah. And then everyone else was doing this around Ireland. And we thought, if we're going to do it, let's just do it let's do it in the cask way. And let's we'll do 7 different bottles. We'll forage the ingredients. We'll just put loads of money. This isn't a label. This is actually, embossed onto the glass. So it's like it's laser printed onto bottles. So, and then we sent them around the country. Look, again, we made a few bob out of it. We didn't, didn't pay off the mortgage or anything, but it was more just to kind of keep our mental health a little bit kind of sane as well. My head bartender at the time, Linda, she's on maternity leave at the moment. She's an incredible bartender who's with me, is still with me. She came up with a lot of the recipes, and it was just a nice project,
Now,
Andy,
just
to interrupt you, Andy, from a scientific perspective, alcohol is a solution, right?
Correct.
Anyway, sorry, I just had to throw that in. Could I ask you
it's always the solution. It's always the solution.
Well, The whiskey you mentioned, is that like got a smoky flavor to it? Is that like, you know, you mentioned
No,
bug oak?
not this particular one. No. But Glen, they do a peated. It's called the Glen Gareth series that West Cork distillers
Right.
are probably one of the big underrated whiskey makers in Ireland, to be honest with you. And again, I suppose because it's look, the idea was it's a very Cork centric cocktail, obviously, hence using them. But no, they do a peated one as well, but this one isn't particularly.
Is there a whiskey boom happening at the moment?
Yeah, and it has been for a while. Yeah, like I mean, Irish whiskey is just phenomenal, especially in the States. I know Leah does a lot of work with a couple of brands who would be very well respected. I mean, look, it's one thing, you know, being great Irish whiskey in the Irish market, but it's a very different story if you can crack the American market. Then it's just obviously such a huge market. You know what I mean? And you can make people out of it.
It's such an old profession as well when you think of it, when you really dig deep into, you know, the distilleries and when their unique stories. I did this fabulous promotion this year, and it was Whiskey Women, and they were female owned, operated you know, distilleries, and they're just amazing stories, you know. Again, I mean, and what spurred me on doing the Whiskey Women promotion was exactly to your point, Alex. There is a huge trend now to whiskies, and so traditionally, what I would have when I, you know, worked in the bars at home in Ireland, it was a pint and a drop, and you'd have your pint and you'd have your whiskey, and it was like the old man's drink. What I was noticing over the course of the past couple.
I just lost contact with you there.
Sorry, yeah, did I click out? You have these young women, young professionals coming into O'Connell's, and they would know more about the whiskies behind my bartenders, you know, so there is definitely a revival, which is great though, you know what I mean? It just, because like I said, each distillery would have their own unique story as well. Very quickly, Andy, Beamish Murphy's Guinness. So obviously Guinness would have, you know, the global market kind of thing, but do you find, like, what is your number one seller in stout? And I'm honestly asking because I have people who say to me, you know, oh, you're only allowed to have Beamish and Murphy's in Cork, and I'm like, I wish, but I'm sure it doesn't work out that way. Following the trends, the age groups, who is your customer base for Beamish and Murphy's?
Well, I mean, for us, there's quite a remarkably a lot of young people would drink Beamish, you know. But I mean, the thing about Guinness is it's such a massive brand. Obviously,
right.
You know, this is Cork. It's a second city, so we get lots of people coming down from Dublin or from overseas. So, you know, we sell quite a bit of Guinness as well. Murphy's is a bit more of the kind of discerning stout drinker. We'll go for Murphy's of the younger demographic, whereas a lot of old lads would love their pint of Murphy's. You know, just that slightly little bit of extra bitterness. But there's some great craft stouts as well. Like there's Medaza is an amazing stout made by Rising Suns down by the Colkey. Phenomenal, and it's a really old Cork recipe as well, which they've remade. And some of the guys down out in West Cork, he's doing a great stout. So like there's just, you know what, there's a bit of a drinks boom in Ireland. It's not just whiskey. Obviously the gin thing has gone through the roof.
Yeah.
And again, they're backed up with some really, really good gins. There's not a lot of them where you'd be like, oh, that's gonna just thrown together. You know, they've all put huge amount of work into them. And some of the, you know, we do a lot of work with Rebel City Distillery. So they're a new distillery. It was the first distillery in Cork City in 50 years, owned by Rob and his lovely Indian wife, Bagya. And they've taken over the old Ford building. So it's this incredible building that was such a heart of Cork for employment for so long, but it was lying dormant. So they've taken it over a couple of years ago, and they're now they're making their gin there, which again it's really, really good stuff. His wife is from Kerala, and they found this cooperative run by women who they basically source all the botanicals and all the spices from this women's cooperative, ship them over. The lads do their thing, and they make Maharanis. The Maharanis are really beautiful, clean gin. And again, like Rob would have a lot of experience. But look, it's a very competitive market, you know. Like there's no, and he'd be the first to tell you that, you know. Cape Clear is making an incredible gin. West Cork's making incredible gin. Clonakilty's making incredible gin. Like there is a lot of them, you know what I mean. So it is competitive, but again, I think for a lot of them, it's kind of, if you can get into that American market, you'll be okay. You
Well,
know?
it is great for me. I love flying the Irish flag as high as I can here in Washington, D.C. And I really mean it. Everything Irish connected, related, even to like the Irish that are coming over on their J1 visas. I'm like the old school mammy going around giving everyone my business cards, you know, if you need anything, give me a call, you know, kind of thing. But it is
Lovely.
just that supporting one another. And it's just, again, it's fabulous, and just so proud to see success in Ireland. And I genuinely see, every time I do go home, I get inspired and I get excited when I see this, like, you know, fire in the belly attitude, like the new Ireland that's emerging, and it's innovative, and we're outside the box thinking, and hard workers. And, you know, it's just incredibly inspiring, because, you know, for a long time, years and years ago, things were very different in Ireland. So it's lovely that I feel that we're definitely a leader globally in the community. You know, I just think it's very, we're very lucky.
And look, obviously, Niamh, you and I both work in the food industry at the moment, or, you know, the bar industry. And I think, first, like you said, for so long there was this, you know, Ireland was about the pint of Guinness and the drop. I mean, that's changed so much, you know. Like some of the restaurants around the country now are like, look, this is a Cork edition, so we can talk about Cork. We didn't have any Michelin stars for a long time, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, we got 3 Michelin stars in 1 year, you know.
Right.
And it just blew everyone out the water. There's some incredible food, and I suppose with Cask, when we opened up, part of what I want to do was kind of take a fine dining approach to ingredients. And introduce them into cocktails, you know what I mean? So, like, we do seasonal menus with, you know, we have a rule where we only use ingredients that grow in Ireland outside of the spirit. So we don't use pineapples or lemons or limes or whatever. You know, it has to come from Ireland. But you know, like, there's other bars doing different things, but there's just, we're finally reaching a standard now where everyone's kind of pushing each other forward. And, you know, like, it's sort of, there was a couple of years there where Cask was at the top, you know. I'd be the first to admit, in the last year or two, other bars have opened which have probably knocked us down a peg, not knocked us down, but they just raised the standards, you know what I mean? And they make us want to work harder and improve what we do. And you know, it's great, because we're such a small little country that it's really imperative that we do all kind of work together, but also really bring the best out in each other, and not just kind of sit back on our laurels, you know.
100%. And another thing that I always, like, I would giggle when I would see new concept restaurants open up. And it does kind of, you know, I'm exhausted with the term farm to table, because, lads, I'm sorry, but weren't we doing that in Ireland for centuries? Like, you know what I mean? We were doing farm to table before it became a thing. And again, you know what I mean? And that's why I love your menu, Andy, and I love your cocktail menu, because it just brings it all home. I think maybe over in the past couple of years, we've got more confidence, as you said, the whole Michelin stars. We've, you know what I mean, we've cultivated a new culture, a new Ireland, and, you know, we're proud of our product, and we're proud of our heritage and the land that we all grew up in. And I think it's, you know, I think it's fabulous. You know, I love it. I absolutely love it.
I think there might be such thing as healthy provincialism as well. You know, Ireland is notorious for its provincialism. You know, the local GA club, the local sports, you know, there's that kind of like local competitiveness.
Yeah.
But there's such a thing as healthy competition too, right? Which is what I think Andy is talking about. And you know, when you go to like countries like Italy, and one village says it makes cheese better than the neighboring village, that they don't know what they're doing. You know, that this is where you get the proper salami or cheese, or whatever they do. And I think that, you know, that's starting to happen hopefully more and more in Ireland. You know, that local places are going to pride themselves on what they're doing as the best, you know, and drive it forwards, because we all benefit from that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? The idea is, well, have good crack about it. I mean, I'll go into restaurants and bars, and if I feel that stuffiness, I'm just not attracted to that. You know what I mean? We all work really hard. We all have stress in our lives. I want to go somewhere, be it in whatever price point the menu's at, but it has to be authentic. You know, kind of thing. You have to feel that authentic feel, that, you know what I mean, you're having an experience when you walk in the door. I think gone with the days of where it is your pub with your pints of stout, and, you know, it is now an experience, you know, when you walk in, or it should be. That's what I keep telling, you know, my staff inside, is that they're not just coming in for a pint and fish and chips and shepherd's pie. They want the whole experience, from the service to the storytelling to everything, you know. So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. But healthy competition is very good. It's necessary, right? It's necessary because then you can become complacent, and that's when then mistakes can happen. You know what I mean? Keep it fresh, keep it new. But listen, lads, you've been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we could have kept talking here all day. You really are. The future of Ireland is obviously very, very bright. With both of you, you know, at the leadership part of everything in the future for Ireland. Alex, once again, like, can't wait to have you over here in DC.
Thanks, Niamh.
Absolutely, of course. And like as I said, going back to the mammy thing, if you need anything or if any of your friends are in DC, make sure they have my contact information. And I really mean that because I
there we
really
go.
mean
Finally.
that because I know, right? I really mean that because at the end of the day, we do all support one another. So yeah, Alex, so proud of you.
Great.
Andy, you're a ledge, my friend. Thanks so very much. Can't wait to see Cask and the future that what Ireland brings to both of you. And really, once again, thanks a million. You're absolutely fabulous, and looking forward to see what's in the future for both of you.
Thanks,
Niamh.
Niamh.
Good to see
See you
you.
in Washington.
Yeah.
And
Thanks a million.
later on this evening.
See you in a bit, mate.
Yeah.
All right, cheers.
Lovely,
Thanks
lovely.
so much again to the lads, Andy Ferreira and Alex Pentek. You guys, we could have, like I said, kept talking all day. So if you're in the Cork area, obviously, please call in to Cask. It's absolutely beautiful. Please follow Alex, alexpentek.com. As I said, exciting times for us in Ireland, no doubt, with these two legends at the helm. So now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our third guest, Simon Nix. Simon is over here, I want to say over a year at this point. Right before COVID is when Simon came to Washington, DC. He's the Counsellor for Justice and Home Affairs here with the Embassy of Ireland in Washington, DC. And if I can also say, Simon is the youngest appointee to be given this position. So obviously very, very proud of Simon. And we'll be talking to Simon now. Welcome, Simon, to the podcast.
Hi, Niamh. How are you? Great to see you.
How are you? Haven't seen you in ages, Simon.
It's been too long. I won't lie.
It actually has been. It actually has been. Now, this is totally not podcast related, but please tell me you saw Saturday's game with Ireland against the All Blacks. Please tell me you saw it.
We were listening to it. So we were we were up on the Sky Drive in Shenandoah, but we were listening to the action,
beautiful.
and every now and again, but it was fantastic. Oh, we were so excited.
Oh, it was, but when you can imagine, O'Connell's was nearly the roof was nearly lifted. I was definitely. You see, I just let myself down, Simon. The excitement got the better of me. You could hear me screaming probably in Cork. You know what I mean? But it was such a brilliant game. It's such a brilliant game. So I'm glad you actually got to hear it. So, Simon, you're here in DC, and I'm going to ask you, because I know you had quite an ordeal with COVID and everything, but would I be correct in saying that you are the youngest diplomat to be appointed this position here in Washington, DC? And how proud are Mammy and Daddy of you? And how proud are you of yourself? And how exciting for you?
I think I am, to the best of my knowledge anyway, I think I'm the youngest person to be the Counsellor for Justice and Home Affairs in quite a while anyway, as far as I know. So yeah, no, Mam is as proud as punch. She really is. Her dream was to work in foreign affairs and the foreign service. So when I got the job, she was just over the moon. It really was. It was a dream come true for her as well.
That's pretty cool, though. So obviously, you're a family that's passionate about, you know, what it is that you do. So is that what like planted the seed to get involved with law?
Well, my father was a barrister, and you know, and we've had so many Gardaí as well throughout our family that like the law has always been a fixture in our house, you know, and so I would have grown up listening to conversations about judgments and this and that trial and all that. So after when I was in college in Galway in NUI, I did my LLB after my degree, and then I was very lucky then to be able to join the Department of Finance, and from there then I joined the Department of Justice, and then after that, I'm here now for the moment anyway.
Now you had when you came over, didn't you come just pre-COVID? It was just pre-COVID, right?
It was September 2020. So when I arrived, DC was a very, very quiet town. There was very little going on, really.
Right. And that just in that role as well, because it is such a, like, you're here to obviously help, kind of thing. The Irish, I mean, I don't exactly know 100% what your day-to-day job is. I know it's very important. But like, obviously, when you don't have that connection, you know what I mean, with your people, like that's tough, like.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's an in-person job. I mean, diplomacy is very difficult to do over the phone or over Zoom. But
Right.
I think that just you kind of have to just adapt to whatever situation in front of you. And I have to say, like that, after a while, after I think as well, there's a little bit of a teething process, but we've been working on Zoom at home for so long as well that it was close enough to second nature anyway.
Yeah.
But it was difficult. Once things opened up again, we could have in-person meetings. I mean, it completely changed things. It really made the job so much more exciting and so much more fulfilling as well, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, and I know we're definitely in a different position that everyone is at home. I think they're getting like, and the only reason I bring that up is just on the hospitality level. I think they're like bringing the time back to 12 o'clock as opposed to here. Like we're nearly 100% completely back. I met you first in O'Connell's when you first came over. And it was that, you, as I had mentioned earlier on to Alex and Andy, it's the very natural Irish thing to do of you give someone your card and you're saying, listen, if you need anything, let me know. And it's a lovely, family away from home. I mean, we always joke, if we were only as good to each other at home, but we really do support one another here. And I felt it, we all did, kind of thing, because it's a big role. COVID is here, kind of thing, and all the family are at home and everything. But I'm bringing up O'Connell's as well because before you were with the embassy, you had a stint in Dromoland Castle in 2007, I want to say, as a barman.
I did indeed, yes. So I worked in the reception hall, the Brian Baru room, as a barman behind the bar. And what I have to say, one of the most enjoyable jobs I ever had. And as well as that, it was my second stint at Dromoland. I started off as an assistant greenskeeper, but I didn't last too long at that. But a bit more successful anyway behind the bar.
That's fantastic, though. That's fantastic. And so obviously we were talking there a couple of weeks ago with regards to Alex, and Alex, obviously, he gave us his fabulous story, and we're also very proud of him. And especially, obviously, on behalf of the embassy, I mean, you all must be ecstatic as well, the fact that, fingers crossed that we get to bring Alex over in the new year and just celebrate everything that's Irish. So I'm sure that's, another thing that the embassy can, a feather in the cap kind of thing, and, to fly our Irish flag, super high and super proud.
Well, I mean, we're very proud of Alex. Like he's an incredible artist. I mean, his Choctaw commemoration as well was just magnificent. I remember seeing that years ago and just being completely blown away by it. And so, and actually, to be honest as well, that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to next year is the return to in-person events. so it would be absolutely brilliant to see Alex get over here next year as well. It really would, so we can celebrate properly.
It really would. And I was saying earlier on that for years, I would post on my social media about the sculpture in Middleton, not realizing it was Alex Pentek I was in school with. And so then when I found out it was Alex, I was like, I was in school with Alex, you know what I mean? And you claim a little bit of ownership on it then, you know what I mean? It's like the O'Donovan brothers won, you know what I mean, in the Olympics with the rowing. Sure, I told everyone they were first cousins of mine. I was like, oh yeah, the lads, yeah. But you know what I mean? But you do claim that pride, that Irish pride. So it'll be very exciting to see when he comes over, you know what I mean, that we'll have a very proud Irish Day. Tell me this, Simon, just a little bit more about yourself. How long is your position here in DC?
You only have me for 4 years, Niamh, I'm afraid to tell you. So I have just under 3 years left. So it'll be the end of the summer in 2024 when I'll be heading home to Dublin.
Wow. And so is there every case that, so is this your first international position, or are you like, so you were saying you were going to go back to Dublin, or are you going to look to like travel elsewhere globally on the map?
No, I'm on secondment, so I'm basically on loan from the Irish Department of Justice to the Department of Foreign Affairs for these 4 years. So no, I'll be heading home in 2024 definitely.
Okay, I don't want to say brilliant, like, because we hate we hate anyone leaving, because you do. I mean, we do all, you know, get to know each other really, really well, and of course it's part of your job, I'd like to think, that you have to get to know all the Irish bars in the Washington DC area, you know what I mean? And so you do make those connections, you know. And the other thing I was going to ask, when you go home, Simon, like when you go home long term, you will be back then based in Dublin.
Yes, yeah. So I'll be back with the Department of Justice.
Okay.
And which part of the department I'll be in will be determined at the time as well. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll come over and visit me. Don't worry. I'll definitely come over and visit.
Okay. I hope so. I absolutely hope so. Well, as I said, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. As I said, I hope the next time you go back, I know Andy, he'll definitely have a slew of cocktails. Of course, being from Cork, we promote Beamish very much so, and Murphy's, which was really interesting when he said that more of the younger clientele drink Beamish. And listen, I don't discriminate against any Irish stouts, but I just thought it was like really, really cool. So the next time that you're home, you have to make a trip down to Cork and see Andy at Cask. Like he again, Andy is another artist. As I said, you know, being a mixologist and being involved in the drinks cocktail industry is really just another medium in the art world, you know, kind of thing. Which again, I just think that the future of Ireland is so bright. You know, there's you're, you know, one of the youngest appointed diplomats, and how exciting. And, you know, we have the likes of Alex, and, you know, then in the hospitality trade, we have Andy, who's nearly won every award out there. You know, so it's just, we're all very proud. We're all very proud of everything Irish. I know this is the Cork edition, and I know you're from Clare, but the main thing that I was like, okay, we let him be Cork for the evening, is you're a Munster supporter, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, through and through. I think my family on both sides hasn't been outside of Munster for I don't know how long.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, listen, Simon, thanks a million. I know you're terribly, terribly busy, and I look forward to seeing it, because it has been a while. And the recipe Andy sent us with the cocktail, I'll definitely have Paul or Anne-Marie or one of the lads in O'Connell's to make it to you. But again, just fabulous to see you. Thank you so very much for your time. Again, another Irish professional that we're proud of, and again, just the Guinness is still flowing in O'Connell's, even though I can't serve Murphy's, which is terrible, or Beamish for that matter. But anyway, we certainly pour a good pint of Guinness, so I hope we see you soon.
Absolutely, always great to see you, Niamh.
All right, thanks, Simon. Thanks so very much, and thank you, a big thank you to Simon, and thank you to everybody. Honestly, you know, these podcasts, it's just a little bit of fun. It's just a little, sorry, you see, I can't do anything. Everybody, this is Daisy. Hi, Daisy. Yeah. Anyway, it's just a bit of fun and a bit of crack. And thanks for tuning in. And if you're in the Washington, DC area, please come see us in O'Connell's. It's coming up to the Thanksgiving time. We have a fabulous smoker on our rooftop patio off the O'Sullivan room, and we're offering loads of Thanksgiving specials of hams and turkeys and pheasants. So like I said, stop in, come say hi to us. And thank you so very much again for tuning. And Sláinte, see ya. Bye.